Have you ever noticed sometimes the hardest season in business isn't when everything is falling apart? It's usually when nothing seems to be happening because you're working, you're showing up, you're making the calls, you're having the conversations, you're doing everything you know to do. And then the scoreboard refuses to move. You got no new clients, no breakthrough, no big opportunities, no confirmation, just silence. And if we're being honest, silence has a way of making us question things we were absolutely convinced about just a few weeks ago. Things like maybe this isn't working. Maybe I missed it. Maybe I should change my direction. Maybe everybody else knows something I don't. Does that sound familiar? I know it does for me personally. So before you start questioning yourself, let me tell you something that might actually surprise you. The National Federation of Independent Business, they track business sentiment every single month. And right now, their uncertainty index is hitting 89. Now, 89 doesn't, it's to me, that would have been a B in school, right? But historically, it's actually been around 68. So what that means is uncertainty is running over 30% higher than that's considered normal. More than half of entrepreneurs say they feel more uncertain today than they did at the beginning of this year. This might be resonating with you. So if you've been feeling like you're walking through a fog lately, you're not imagining it. The fog is real. Here's here's what I think a lot of people are getting it wrong because the fog isn't what's actually defeating the people. People defeat themselves inside the fog. And that's exactly what we're going to be handling today. So I'm Spencer Combs. I'm the Defiant coach. I've spent over 20 years coaching entrepreneurs and high performers to break through the ceilings, keeping them from their full potential. And I even wrote the book on it. Literally, it's called Momentum and Mastery. Check this out. Boom. That's what it looks like. This is Spencer Uncensored, episode 123. Just here we talk about what it really takes to build a business, lead your family, strengthen your faith, and become the person you were created to be. So there's no fluff, there's no filters. That's why it's called Spencer Uncensored. Just real conversations that move you forward. So around here, we don't chase motivation. We actually build momentum because momentum comes and goes, but or motivation comes and goes, but momentum changes lives. So let's get to it. Sorry, we'll edit that out, right? Um, sorry. Last week we talked about anchor goals. If you guys think I over edit this stuff, no, it's uncensored. It's also unfiltered. Last week we talked about anchor goals, right? So episode 122, this is 123. We talked about anchor goals last time. And it's not about wishful thinking. It's not New Year's resolutions. It's not going to be another motivational exercise that'll be forgotten by next Tuesday. I don't know why we throw Tuesday under the bus in every one of our episodes, but in any event, um, I'm talking about that one non-negotiable destination, right? The place you've decided you're going regardless of how long it takes or how hard it gets. So I shared the story of Roald Amundsen last week. While everyone else was trying to outrun the weather, you know about this, Amundsen marched 15 miles every day. Good weather, bad weather, it didn't matter. His standard never changed because he understood something a lot of people never do, right? You don't become successful because of what you do once in a while. You become successful because of what you refuse to stop doing. It's what you do all the time. Now, maybe after that episode, you set yourself an anchor goal. You're like, hey, I got this. This is okay. That makes a lot of sense. We're going to do this. And maybe you committed to growing your business or even committed to things like repairing your marriage or get your health under control, committed to your business, to God for the very first time. I don't know, whatever it is. I want to ask you this. Has anything changed yet? Seriously, has life shown up and applauded your decision? Has your bank account suddenly just exploded because you made that decision? Has your phone started ringing off the hook? Has everyone around you suddenly recognized your brilliance? Probably not. And that's where a lot of people get into trouble because they mistake silence for failure. Probably what you're experiencing, let's give it a name. We're going to call it the gap. And the gap is the space between commitment and confirmation. So it's in that distance between making the decision and then seeing the evidence that it was the right one. Every dream has a gap. Every marriage has a gap. Every fitness journey has some kind of gap. Businesses, obviously, they're going to definitely have a gap, right? When I bring this in the spiritual world, every ministry has a gap. Every meaningful commitment you'll ever make, it's going to come with a gap. But here's the problem with all of this, and most of us, we're willing to make the decision, but very few are willing to survive the gap, like keep going. Because the gap is where doubt gets loud. It's where your emotions start asking questions, your convictions already answered. It's where yesterday's confidence, right, becomes today's uncertainty. And if you're not really careful about all this, you'll start negotiating with the very commitment that could change your life. Think about this. You decide you're going to lose, let's say, 50 pounds. And then 3 weeks later, the scale barely moves. Or maybe it moved heavily that first week because you did some new stuff. But then you start noticing the plateau and you're just struggling to get any further. Now you're wondering if this diet is even the right thing to be doing. So maybe you say things like, maybe I should try keto. Maybe intermittent fasting. That's the thing, because I keep seeing that online, right? Or I should become a carnivore. Maybe it's Ozempic. I don't know. Maybe I need a different workout. Maybe this, maybe that, whatever. No. Maybe you just haven't been at it long enough. It's the same thing in business. We commit to building your database, right? You commit to prospecting, commit to improving your leadership. You're going to commit to becoming the kind of person your future requires. And then 30 days later, nothing dramatic's happened. So what do people do? Typically, they abandon the plan, not because it was wrong, but because it hadn't rewarded them yet. So lean in for a second. This may be the one most important thing I'm going to say today. Don't confuse a lack of confirmation with a lack of progress. Just because you can't see the roots doesn't mean the tree isn't growing, right? Just because the foundation is underground doesn't mean the building isn't being built. The harvest hasn't arrived, okay, but that doesn't mean that the seed is dead. Some of the most important work God ever does in your life, He does where nobody can see. That's including in you. And that's uncomfortable sometimes because we live in a culture that celebrates visible success, like we want to talk about it all the time, while ignoring the invisible preparation that's going on behind it. Everybody wants that harvest. Nobody posts pictures of the plowing, right? Everybody applauds the championship. Tell me I'm wrong. Few people are going to celebrate the thousands of ordinary practices that made it possible. And that's why cultural gravity, by the way, is so dangerous. It convinces you that if nobody notices, nothing is happening, which is in fact a lie. Sometimes the greatest progress you'll ever make is completely invisible until suddenly it isn't. You ever notice how success almost looks overnight to the people who weren't actually paying attention? They'll look at someone and say, man, you just blew up. No, they didn't. This is why I get so annoyed when people say things like must be nice when they're talking about one of my coaching clients who's done really, really well. Must be nice for them. Listen, they worked their rear end off to get there. Probably, or maybe you just weren't watching when they were putting in the work. You weren't there when nobody was buying. You weren't there when nobody was listening. You weren't there when they were questioning themselves but decided to keep moving anyway. So what looked like an overnight success was years of ordinary obedience that finally became visible. And that's, by the way, this is exactly why cultural gravity loves the gap, because the gap is where your convictions get tested, not your talent, not your intelligence, not your convictions. See, I don't believe cultural gravity usually attacks your dream, by the way. It attacks your confidence in that dream. That'll preach. It's not the dream that it causes you to, it causes you to lack confidence in the dream itself. It doesn't have to destroy the vision. It just has to make you question it long enough to get you to stop moving. And by the way, cultural gravity can show up by family members telling you, co-workers, friends, people that you consider friends. It shows up for them or through them to you. Whispers, things like maybe you just overestimated yourself. Maybe you're too late. Maybe somebody else could do this a little bit better, right? So and so. Maybe this isn't God's timing, or better yet, maybe this isn't God's will. Maybe this isn't what you're supposed to be doing. You ever notice how those thoughts always seem reasonable? Like, that's what makes them dangerous, by the way. Lies rarely show up looking like lies. They usually show up dressed like wisdom, and then something else happens. You start looking sideways. Comparison. One of the oldest traps in the book is comparison. You're going to scroll through social media and everybody else is closing deals. Everybody else is launching businesses, right? Everybody else has got a packed seminar or whatever. Everybody else's marriages look amazing when you look online. Everybody else's kids are perfect, little angels. Everybody else. Everybody else is apparently crushing life. But let me let you in on something. You're comparing your behind the scenes footage to somebody else's highlight reel. You know this because that's what you do. That's a losing game every single time. You have no idea what they're sacrificing. You have no idea what they're struggling with. You have no idea what it costs them to get where they are. Honestly, it's none of your business, none of my business. God didn't call you to steward somebody else's assignment. He called you to steward your own. So stay in your lane. Keep marching. Now, that's comparison is the first attack that they use, that cultural gravity uses. Then comes the second attack. There's three of them that I'm covering. The second attack is the absence of feedback. So this one gets almost everybody, almost always, because we live in a world that has conditioned us to expect instant results or at least instant response or feedback. Think about these kind of things. Like Amazon delivers tomorrow. Netflix, we got movies nowadays. You don't have to go anywhere to get it. It's right in your hands, right? Google answers things in seconds. Your AI answers things in seconds in a much better way. We expect life to operate the same way. But when it comes to transformation, right? Transformation doesn't work on Amazon Prime. Character doesn't download overnight. Leadership doesn't happen in 2 business days. But we act like it does. And neither does lasting success, by the way. The greatest things you'll ever build take time. And I think we all inherently know this. So stop demanding microwave results from crock pot principles. Say that 5 times fast. I'm going to let that sink. Here's where I think a lot of entrepreneurs are making critical mistakes. They become obsessed with the scoreboard. And I believe in tracking numbers and that kind of thing. But every day they're asking how much money came in, how many contracts, how many followers or views or likes, whatever, right? How many appointments? None of those are necessarily bad questions. They're just terrible daily questions in most contexts, because most of those are outcomes. And outcomes lag behind in the behavior. So instead, maybe we should become obsessed with your standards, because standards are where champions live. Every morning, ask yourself things like, did I honor my priorities today? Did I make the calls I committed to? How did I protect my time? Did I learn something today? Did I lead anyone today, especially myself? Here's the truth. If your confidence depends on the scoreboard, you're going to ride an emotional roller coaster your entire career. So one good month, you're unstoppable. One bad month, you're questioning your purpose in life almost. And that gets exhausting going up and down like that. Stop tying your identity to outcomes you don't completely control. Tie your confidence to standards. I've said it for years. Champions don't become champions because they're extraordinary. They become champions because they do ordinary things extraordinarily and consistently. Read. I struggle with reading. So I listen to Audible all the time. Pray. I struggle with that, doing it consistent like I should, having that communication. Lead people, meaning be decisive, give the vision, give direction, right? Prospect. I feel bad just kind of browsing over prospect, but that's a big one. If the market's difficult, whatever business you're in, it's probably because we need to pick up our prospecting game. Follow up. Holy crap. There's one that causes problem for people, heartburn, right? They do all the prospecting, but they don't do the follow up. Got to do that if you want to get anywhere. Exercise. Ugh. Some people are naturally, excited about it, but they get up and do it. And some people aren't excited about it and they still get up and do it. This is a personal challenge for me right now. Okay. Um, Loving your family. Do all these things. Repeat. It's not glamorous. It's not going to be sexy, but it's incredibly effective because when you are effective and you create the success over time, that is sexy. Momentum isn't built through massive moments typically. It's built through repeated disciplines. That's why I named the book, by the way, Momentum and Mastery. Momentum comes from movement. We got to take action. And then mastery comes from the repetition. So neither one happens accidentally. People ask all the time, Spencer, how long does the gap last? Like, how long is that? I wish I could give you a magic number, like 37 days, 92 days, 6 months, and 3 weeks. That's a magic number. No, life doesn't work like that. But here's what I have learned. The bigger the assignment, the longer the preparation. The bigger the dream, the longer the proving ground. If your goal is to maybe just tweak something, you probably know pretty quick if it's working out or if it's doing anything, right? But if your goal is to become a different person almost entirely, to build a different kind of business or a bigger business, to create a different legacy, don't expect that stuff in 30 days, folks. God's usually more interested in preparing you than promoting you. Ooh, yes. How y'all feeling today? God's more interested in preparing you than just promoting you. Because if your character can't sustain your success becomes your downfall. Just this morning, my Bible lesson, my devotional was being faithful in the small things. This is exactly what that's about. Think about it. Sometimes the delay isn't punishment. Many times it's just preparation. Sometimes God isn't saying no. Sometimes he's saying, not yet. You're still becoming. And if that's where you are today, don't despise the process. Take it on. Embrace it. Because the person you'll become in that gap is often way more valuable than the goal you're chasing on the other side. This is why I believe that the gap isn't where dreams die. The gap is where defiant people are actually made. So let's go back to where we started. The NFIB says uncertainty is sitting at about 89. Historically, it's around 68. We've covered that earlier. That means business owners all across this country are feeling the pressure. They're feeling the weight. They're feeling the fog. But here's the interesting part. At the very same time, uncertainty has remained elevated. Optimism has actually started climbing again. Now, why does that matter? Well, because it should be telling us both something. The people who are winning right now aren't the people who have all the answers. They're not the people that found some secret little shortcut. They're not the people who figured out how to eliminate uncertainty. They're the people that probably learned how to move while uncertainty still exists. Let that marinate for a minute. I've said this before too. Courage isn't the absence of fear. Faith isn't the absence of questions either. Leadership isn't the absence of uncertainty. It's the willingness to move forward anyway. That's a decision. That's being defiant. Defiant isn't pretending life is easy. It isn't putting on a fake smile and acting like everything is perfect. Defiant isn't toxic positivity either, by the way. What we're talking about here, it looks uncertain, it looks uncertainty square in the face and then says, "You're not coming with me." No, you're coming with me, but you're not driving. How about that? Yeah, I like that. You're coming with me, but you're not driving because uncertainty gets a seat. It just doesn't get the steering wheel. So let me challenge this. Let me challenge you with this today. I think too many people have built their life around one question, right? How do I know I'm making progress? It's probably the wrong question. Here's a better one. Who am I becoming? Because if you're becoming more disciplined, you're probably winning. If you're becoming more faithful, you're probably winning. If you're becoming a better spouse, a better parent, leader, steward, whatever, right? You're winning. Even if the bank account hasn't caught up yet. And you know why? Because money follows value. Influence follows credibility. Leadership follows trust. And all three take time. I've been coaching entrepreneurs for more than 2 decades, folks. I've watched people go from broke to building $1 million businesses. I've watched agents who could close a deal become market leaders. I've watched marriages restored. I've also seen marriages dissolve and both parties become better people. I've watched people become, well, I want to say sober, but really, I've seen people overcome addictions. I've watched leaders rediscover purpose after believing they were finished. And you know what every single one of those stories had in common? Not one of them happened overnight. Every single one of them had a gap. Every one of them had moments where they wondered if they were wasting their time. All of them had days where quitting would have been a lot easier. And I get those calls sometimes. But here's the cool thing, they didn't. And because they didn't, everything changed. Bible says, let's not grow weary in doing good, for at the proper time we're going to reap the harvest if we do not give up. Slight paraphrase there, but it's a Bible verse. Love it. Not because it promises a harvest, but because it acknowledges something first. You're going to get weary. God never said you wouldn't. He just said, don't stop. There is a harvest. But there's also a season before the harvest, so don't confuse the season for the destination. So here's the challenge this week. Here's our challenge this week. I don't want you measuring success by your scoreboard for the week. I want you measuring success by your standard. So every single day, ask yourself 4 questions. Did I keep my word? Did I honor my priorities? Did I move my vision forward? And did I become a little more like the person that God is calling me to be? If the answer is yes, then you probably won for the day. If nobody noticed, even if the phone didn't ring, even if the deal might have fallen apart, which those can be a gut punch, even if the numbers didn't move, because eventually they will. Maybe not today, maybe not next week, maybe not even next month. But if you stay committed to the standard, the scoreboard almost always catches up. So let me leave you with this. Don't let temporary silence convince you that permanent success isn't coming. The seed grows underground long before anyone ever celebrates the harvest and gets the fruit. The foundation disappears beneath the surface long before anyone admires the building. And the strongest leaders, by the way, they become strong long before anyone calls them successful. So if you're walking through what we're calling the fog these days, keep walking. If you're living in the gap, keep building. If nobody's applauding, keep serving. It's probably not even about you. If nobody believes in your dream yet, believe it anyway, because one day the people who call you an overnight success will have absolutely no idea how many ordinary Tuesdays, how many quiet mornings, how many difficult decisions, how we were going to pay, cover payroll. There's a lot of struggles. All the lonely miles. They're not going to remember all that stuff. All the things that it took to get you there. So remember, decision comes first. Then comes discipline. Only after that comes demonstration. Most people want the demonstration before they're willing to embrace the discipline, and that's not how life works. So that's not how leadership works either. And that's certainly not how God grows people. So if this episode challenged you, I'd love for you to do two things. First, share it with someone who's ready to quit. They probably need to hear this. Somebody who's in the gap right now and needs to hear that silence isn't failure. And then two, second thing is if you haven't picked up a copy of Momentum and Mastery, head over to momentumandmastery.com, grab your copy. It's the framework. It's the one I've spent years developing to help leaders create momentum that lasts and build the kind of mastery that survives uncertainty. It's what we call it, unshakable profit, productivity, and purpose. And if you're wondering where cultural gravity has been stealing your momentum, by the way, you can head over to unshakablesecrets.com. You can do the Defiant assessment there. So I'll show you exactly where you're drifting and how to get back behind the wheel. That's like a 3-minute, 5-minute assessment you can do real quick. It'll give you a full report. It's kind of neat. So as always, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss next week's episode, because next week we're going to go even deeper. So until then, don't confuse silence with failure. Don't mistake the gap for the end of the story. Keep your standards high. Keep your eyes on the mission. Keep your feet moving. And above all, stay defiant.